All right. There we go. Away we go. It is Wednesday, October the 16th of 2024, and this is the Profitable Real Estate Agent Plan. Thank you all for all of you who are in here live. I appreciate that effort. I know for some of you, it's the end of the day or early evening, and I just appreciate you being here because I'm passionate about this stuff that we share on this call. It is all free to you, and let me give it some context. Over the years, as a doer of the thing, meaning I am an active broker for 25 years, I'm still very active in the field, mostly listing properties, but dealing with buyers that come from those properties. So when I teach you something, I'm teaching you what I know how to do, and I know that it works, so I teach it to you. This course is largely generally open to the public. You might find some of my Griffin agents in here, some of my TRC coaching agents in here, but everybody is welcome because I'm passionate about trying to get good education into this industry because it just doesn't exist on a holistic scale. There are a lot of good tactics out there that you can learn, but the purpose of this course is to give you some structure to run this as a business. As my favorite saying goes, nobody's coming for you. And the minute that you become a real estate agent, unless you're at a company that said to you, you are an employee, we're going to write you a check every week for certain things that you do, maybe a Redfin agent, but for the most of us, we are independent agents. And that means our business, when we join a brokerage, is hooking itself to another brokerage. So the good news is that we are very actively recruiting. My recruiter and / head telemarketer, she plays both roles for us. Kathy is in here tonight, and she's brought us in a lot of interesting people recently, and we just tell them the same story over and over. Why us? Because we have a plan, and we stick to that plan, and it's core and it's fundamental to everything we do. So every time we try to go out there and solve a problem, we can usually come right back to the wireframe of the plan. So that's what we're sharing here each week. Now, if you're just coming on for the first time, you're catching a 12-week program. Don't worry about it. Each class lives individually. I believe that when I syndicate this through StreamYard, it is going to the YouTube channel on for the Realty Classroom. So if you go to YouTube and you search the Realty Classroom, you should be able to find the recordings for this. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Lots of technology at once. I'm streaming both to StreamYard, YouTube, and Zoom at the same time. So sometimes it's funky, but the content should be over there. If not, don't sweat it. I do 12 weeks in a row. I take a couple of weeks off, and then I repeat the whole thing again. So it's over and over and over. Why? Why would I do it like that? Because again, we believe that if we give you our best what to do information as an agent in the very methodologies that we use that we know are successful, then you can figure out how to do it. Now, for those of you that come live, I always cheat a little bit and give you some of the hows I do it. I don't want to go right down into that alley every night because I want you to know what I think strategically has to be considered to run a successful holistic business. I was talking to twin sisters tonight who are our most recent Griffins that are going to join us. And I just kept saying, listen, you have to get up above the whole business and see it as an assembly line. And not far from me, I don't know if you can see this well when I hold this up, but Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, talks about strategic approach amongst other things. And so I built a model that was very simple that reminds me it's the strategy first. Marketing strategy leads to conversion, meaning lead to prospect to client, leads to a closing module, leads to past clients. Then I have to measure it all. And if I want to expand, I expand. All of those major chunks need strategies, but there's also just this simple assembly line that runs below that, where tactically we're finding the raw materials of contacts. We're being ready from a marketing standpoint to strategically offer them a unique selling proposition. We talk about that in one of the first couple of weeks, what that package looks like. I have them always within arm's reach when I'm coaching from my office. Always having a unique selling proposition of information that you provide to somebody is core and fundamental. You cannot think, especially if you're new in this business, that you're just going to do business with people because they like you and you know how to build rapport. It's never good enough. ever. For veterans, rookies, it doesn't matter. You have to give them a reason why they should do business with you. And that's not a tagline either. Oh, your house sold, guaranteed, or I buy it. I learned those types of things. They're taglines, they're campaigns, they're programs. But you need to be able to answer for the buyer or seller. Why should they do business with you? Well, that's a tricky thing. So it turns out if you give them information in an organized information product for the buyers tonight, sellers last week, right? If you give them information, you're triggering strategic marketing approaches by triggering the law of reciprocity. If I give you information as a buyer, and that empowers you to make a good buying decision when you're going through this process, and I don't expect anything in return, I'm using what turns out to be one of the most powerful strategic methodologies that there is, the law of reciprocity. And it makes it so easy in the context of this world that has put so much pressure on agents now. Well, now you have to sign a buyer-client contract mandatorily. Well, I was doing that back in the mid-2000s because I had learned to give information to people and educate them on what the value was that I was offering. So once they saw that against these other opportunities they had to do business with somebody else, the ones that were a good fit said yes, and we did business, right? So we're not really teaching anything new just because the law really became a little bit firmer. We're teaching the same thing, which is great news for you. We know what we're doing when it comes to showing and demonstrating value to a buyer. So tonight, when we talk about procuring buyers and then protecting them, we're really in the context saying, listen, this is how you start the minute you meet a buyer. And even if you know them, you have to treat people you don't know and the ones you do know the same way, professionally. And that starts by strategically marketing, by giving away your best what to do information for free. And we talk about that early in the course, but it leads all the way through the process. So how you start something is usually how you finish. So the idea is at the beginning of an assembly line, this course, if I show you in the very beginning how to get started in the right direction, and again, that's for yourself too. You have to get yourself set up. You have to get a strategic goal. You have to have a self-image. Those are the first 2 weeks we talk about how to do those things so that when you create this unique selling proposition, week 3, then you begin to apply it, right? But you can't just run down the hill and say, I need leads and I'm good. Why? You wouldn't even know what to say to a lead if you weren't ready to have a unique selling proposition package of information to offer them. You'd just be doing it on muscle. And that, my friends, is never a sustainable business model. And you have to hear that from me loudly and clearly, right? So very, very important to hear that. And I do see a message from Paul here in the chat. We have a lot of new people today, okay? So you're catching the train that's already on station number 10 out of 12 courses. Do not worry about it. Just listen to tonight's microcosm and listen to the way that we explain how to do this micro piece of a macro formula. And over time, if you're joining Paul in Seattle, Grant in Arizona, me in Massachusetts, or you're a realty classroom member, or you're just a visiting guest, don't worry about not seeing it all at once. I'm glad you're here. And now you understand it's a continuum of 12 different pieces that we teach what to do. Okay. So let's indulge this one tonight and we'll get going. Hopefully one of my Realty Classroom members can tell me, do you see a slideshow that is starting now that says protecting your buyers? I just need to know that everybody can see that. Somebody open their mic and tell me that, please. Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Wunderbar. Okay, so let's go. So again, protecting your buyers is the subject tonight, okay? Now, developing an answer to, are you protecting your buyers? Which I always start this way because I want you to be asking yourself these questions. And if you're new, like, what do you mean protecting buyers? What is that? Is that a thing? Well, just thinking about these things, these provocative statements in the beginning forces you to get into this worksheet mentality where I don't overwhelm you. In this course, I hit a couple pages worth of fill in the blanks. Okay. I always suggest you could write these things down and it comes out of your head through your arm and onto paper. It becomes a little bit more real for you, but you can just follow along here and understand I'm taking you through a worksheet thinking process to train your brain to try to remember These things are what you should be thinking about, okay? What you should do. How to do it, if you join me, we show you how, yes, okay? But this is what every single agent should think about, what to do about buyers, okay? So, as I said before in my preamble here, it's very important to understand how you start is usually how you finish. And it sets you on a disciplined trajectory. If you don't have a systematic, strategic approach in advance, thought out for buyers, then you're taking each one individually, okay? And you're starting each one so individually. Now, that sounds right because you say, well, everybody is different. I should treat them different. No, you shouldn't. You should take each buyer through a structured process because there is an immutable set of steps that somebody must go through to buy a property. Immutable meaning unbreakable. There's just a truth to things, the way things happen. So what we do is we try to pull them out and chunk them up into 6 steps. So all that beginning, it matters, right? So the best beginning to a relationship with a buyer is to give away your best what to do information for free. And I will grab this off of the board over here. And just so you know, I know it's hard to see the screen and me at the same time, but there's a buyer presentation when I'm physically there, and there's a mailed package here. So I'll show you the components of this because this is what we talked about making in week 3, the unique selling proposition, right? But the idea is to be able to make an information product and give it away. And in here is the best what to do information on how to buy a house that I could come up with based on those unbreakable steps in buying a house, okay? So it becomes a physical product, right? So the question is, well, why would I do that? Because then my competitors will do it. Well, that's this mentality of scarcity. To believe that there are not enough buyers for all of us is insane. There are just so many people that are thinking about buying a property. You have to get beyond that and stop thinking so scarcely, right? There are plenty of people for you. And for you to hit your financial goals, which we talk about in week 2, it doesn't take that many buyers who are going to buy at or above the median price in the geography within which you're doing business, right? So we want to get ready to give away what to do. So what are the benefits of doing that? Well, when you give away your best information for free, you begin to empower the buyer and open up a competitionless lane. Now, I have to always slow this down because I talked about this last week. When people hear competitionless, their animal brain shuts down and says, well, that's not possible. You can't eliminate the competition. That's not what it means. What it means is that if there are a pool of agents competing for a buyer business, right, or a buyer's business, then what I want to try to train you to do is sound like an only one, not an everyone. And that's what it means. If you can sound like an only one talking a specific way about this process, if you're that unique in the way you're organizing it and talking about it, you've put yourself in a competitionless lane. It doesn't mean that there aren't other lanes, but those other people are all bunched together, sounding and looking the same. So they're all competing in a very similar way. Oh, my company does this, or my website does that, right? They're talking about tactics. And they're beginning to make things up about why them, and they're trying to they become takers like that. Even good people who think they're giving, because they're not really giving something. So if you just come over and go, well, wait a minute, I don't need to talk about my company. I don't need to talk about any of that stuff. And especially what are you going to do if you're a rookie? You can't even talk about stuff like that. You could talk about, oh, I joined the Cantu group at Griffin, and right, okay, but so what? You're the one that's in front of them. So what we're trying to do is say, listen, we're going to give you information on how buying a property really happens, and we're going to ask you to give it away because we want you to be seen not as somebody with or without resume. We want you to be seen as the person that is giving away information to empower that person. Here's the key point: whether or not they do business with you, right? That's the true power of the law of reciprocity. Again, I talk about it almost every week. The books that I use, this one, Influence by Robert Cialdini, Cialdini. That is a very important book because it talks about the way people really behave, not the way we perceive them. So if I give you a gift of information, you're likely to give me something back. That's what the law of reciprocity is, the law of human behavior of reciprocity. If I give you, it doesn't always work perfectly, but if I give you something that's valuable to you and you feel empowered by it, you're likely to want to give me at least a gift in return. It could be a few minutes of time on the phone. It could be plenty of time in an open house. It could be your listing. It could be your buyer business. So you have to understand that when you're giving this and you're starting off this way, remember what I said in the first sentence here, the best beginning to a relationship with a buyer is giving this away. Same thing for the sell side. We talked about it last week. It's identical. So we're going to give it away. Obviously, contextually, it's a book about how to buy a house versus a book about how to sell a house. But it's just what to do. And it's general. And it's not unique to anybody but the process. So it's not like we wrote this and it's exclusive to us. It's actually the way any buyer or any seller goes through. You can debate it with me. You can argue it with me. But really, there are some pretty universal steps. And I'll pull it out just to show you what mine looks like. It looks like this. It's an empowering magazine with 6 steps in it. Okay. And it articulates all of the details, right? I'll get back to that in a second. I don't want to get too caught up in it. But if I were to give this to you and you have real context to buy a house soon, now or in the near future, like we like to say, then this education is empowering to you. But you do have to consume it. You do have to want to take it from me. You have to want to talk to me. So I can't just give this to anybody and everybody and expect it to be effective. I have to find what's called avatar. And we talk about that in this course too, early on. Why is it important to define your ideal buyer and your ideal seller? Because not only will you know the geographics of where and how much, you begin to know their psychographics, that they have a real why, a high motivation to do so, and lastly, that they'll go into this law of exchange with you, right? Very important stuff. And if you do that correctly, you find yourself as the only one doing it this way. And that, my friends, is how we determine what a unique selling proposition is. It's not necessarily all the information, because we're all kind of talking about that. It's just that you organized it, right? Went out and curated it first. Went out and found it in the world with me. It's been organized. You productized it and then gave it away. You get credit for all of that, right? So how do you set yourself up for a buyer acquisition process? So again, we've talked about how to begin, what the benefits are. Well, it's best to chunk up your steps and educate the buyer that you'll be following the exact process and reviewing with them along the way. So when you're trying to, this is a key point now for value. And all of you worried about how are you going to get people to sign these new agreements that are mandatory? You're not worried about that yet, right? You've got the cart way before the horse if you're asking questions about how do I get somebody to sign this? Well, wait a minute. Why don't you first understand how do I get them to see value in me? And then it should be a byproduct that's easy to get the buyer to sign an agreement. If the byproduct of me giving you information is you feel empowered, now you want to know how I would take you through the process. Oh, great. Here's how it would happen. I would take you out to see properties, but we would have to sign this mandatory agreement. And just so you know how it works with me is that when I write an offer, what I get paid is included in that offer. Period. There's nothing more to it than that. But everybody wants to talk about the tactical, how it happens, and nobody wants to talk about giving away what to do first to somebody. So we're missing a major understanding in marketing. It's a major misunderstanding of marketing. You have to empower somebody through the marketing so they're magnetized into you to be curious. You're magnetizing them in slowly. And by the way, like a good magnet, you're repelling the wrong people, right? When the magnet doesn't match up to the right side, a magnet repels. When it's the right side, it attracts. And that's what a good, unique selling proposition process. This is the information product, but the process of you offering it, saying the right words, engaging, that's a process, not a product. So the unique selling proposition process, it's important to understand it's a magnetic attraction to the right people, right? Now, when you do something like this, okay, and I'm going to open up 2 components of it because I'm going to show you what chunked up means. if I showed you the infographic that I use more so to have a cheat sheet for a presentation to somebody, because everybody wants the quick and dirty, it looks like a fifth grade infographic that explains a 6-step process with simple representations in graphics. Okay. But if I really want to teach somebody, I can give them a copy. You'll see the same 7 steps on the homepage that are in here on the infographic, but then they are fully articulated section by section. So it is an educational piece. Now, everybody wants to say, oh, it's too many words and it's this and that. Really? Okay, well, then you don't understand empowerment. You're more worried about aesthetic. Sure, we blend aesthetic in. Pretty pictures, that go along with things. Of course, you want an aesthetic, that's part of your branding or whatever. But it's the information that you're giving these people that is empowering them. Information. And a lot of times, smart marketers taught me this, by the way, right? A lot of times what happens is you're actually sometimes not even going to have them consume this. The fact that you would even have this and it has weight to it, you can hear it as it hits my desk. Some people will never take it out of the quote unquote shrink wrap, and they will make a value judgment on you that, my gosh, are you professional? And a lot of this is also built from a copywriting standpoint for them to skim quickly to understand it easily. And if they want to divulge into the details, great. But if all it takes is a quick skimming of this for them to be convinced you're professional, you're off to a good start. And that's really what happens when something is strategically marketed the correct way, right? So chunking up the exact process simplifies it for somebody too. Let's pause on that for a second too. I think a lot of people, especially you new agents that are here tonight, I think what you think is that the people that you would go meet that own a median and above property or want to buy one, in this case tonight, you think they're savvy. That was a word my brother, used on me once upon a time. He goes, well, these people are savvy. I said to him, well, what does that mean? Savvy in what we do? We do this every day. They're not savvy in what we do. They own another type of business, or they're super academics. In Boston, a guy walked into one of my listings in an open house the other day. It said MIT, and below it said PhD/MD, right? Like, okay, that's an 8,000 pound brain, not an 800 pound. But he knows nothing about this process. How do I know that? Because I gave him this package of information and he said, thank you so much. And they had a little baby. I'm going to consume this when I went home. I'll guarantee you he consumed it when he went home, right? So whether I'm able to prospect that buyer and procure him is not the point right there, because then we would have to follow up and try to procure him further, but it's all chunked up for him. So he doesn't have to do thinking. I'm sure he does enough thinking at MIT every week. I don't need him to think about this process, because here he is with his baby and they're running around where they're trying to go to lunch and they're looking at Zillow. That is chaos. So if I chunk the process up and say, listen, think about it this way, look in this order, right? This is the order of things that you should be thinking about. And this will make the process much easier. And that's what it means to empower somebody by chunking it up, right? So then when you start to get somebody, so I just gave you that process. So we have somebody that I procured from another open house, and I needed that person to jump into this formulaic approach where now, okay, I acted as if I was already a representative. And the first thing I asked them, have you gone through a financing process? I first said, how much you want to spend? They said 750 to $2 million. I said, have you gone through a process of financing so you know exactly what that looks like at today's rates? No. Okay, I'm going to introduce you to a banker that I like, that I think will be perfect for you, right? So I don't have any contract with them yet. I haven't asked them to sign anything other than what's mandatory, right? And I'm already acting as if I am representing them by saying the right thing to do is get qualified first. Get a pre-qualification. One, it tells you what it really looks like for principal and interest, right? Before you go out and buy a house, so you know you're comfortable. You said 750 to $1 million, but depending on what the interest rates are and where you qualify, that could be a variable, right? It is a variable based on those things. Figure that out. Then I'll have Laura at my office send you some solds in that $750 to $1 million price range, and let's cheat you more back towards Centerville and Osterville, because that's where you're telling me you'd rather be, and I think it's a better value. So now we go into the third part of the plan. So you see, when I'm actually doing this with real people, I'm following the plan. So a simple chunked up process not only helps them, it keeps me from wanting to indulge too far in the personal stuff. And with this young couple, that was easy. It turns out they moved all the way from Cape Cod, to Cape Cod from Minnesota, and where my wife's from, and they lived in the town where my son 2 years ago spent 2 years at a high school playing hockey. Like, so I could have easily indulged in rapport and all this, always in this cozy, but I immediately snapped back to strategically helping them get organized to demonstrate the value of working with me without even asking for anything. So I am giving away what to do for free, but I'm beginning to border on how to do it with me because I'm giving you my connections to get organized. I'm giving you my client care manager to send you sold so you can see what that money has recently bought. And then the next thing is, can we get them into tour homes with us, right? So it's just a process that we're following. So establishing a transparent checklisted process for onboarding a buyer and including them in the process is critical because people will support what they help create. So what I just did with you is I said the 6 points really becomes that transparent checklist. And as we're co-creating it, they're feeling this relationship is there. So the gift of saying, here's the right banker for you, get pre-qualified, here's the reason. Sure, we'll do that. They're co-creating it, and that's building plenty of connection. And that's where rapport really comes from. Not because we like each other, we have human common stuff. It's because I am co-creating through a transparent checklist of what to do, right? Through the 6 steps, we're co-creating that. And there's a phenomenon that people will support that relationship if they feel like they're adding value to it themselves. And you're helping them, right? It's like any relationship. You can't just be over talking somebody and dominating somebody and trying to take them. Some people don't mind being led by the nose, but it's so much of a better process when you're co-creating it, right? So how do you define caring for a buyer? Well, it's crucial during this to maintain your authority over this process. So you're saying, you're taking them through this process and saying, listen, this is the way it works. Now, you want to say that with the confidence that your natural voice has, but not, well, you might want to, that's the difference in the law of authority, which is also one of Cialdini's laws of influence. So I want to authoritatively believe in this myself and then tell them what to do in order to get the best property at the best price. So I told them that they need to, and again, I'm using this language for you in coaching, how you do this to them, obviously take some of your moxie to say it the right way. But I'm telling them that they have to go out there and get organized with their financing so that we have this, we have this pre-approval from the bank so that we can negotiate the best price and terms because we show strength because they're putting a significant amount of money down. So that's what you're telling them to do to win. Hey, I have a formula. You're the coach. You're the authority, not them. And again, if you're saying, here's the formula, and you started off by giving it away for free, and then you started to act as if you were already in relationship, they're drawn towards you, folks. This is magnetic attraction. Now, again, remember, people that don't want it are going to show you body language that they don't want it. So you're not going to force feed them your unique selling proposition. You're going to let those people go because they might not really have a why they want to do something. They might be in a relationship with a broker. You can ask those things directly, but you can also read the body language, read the room. If they're appreciating what is happening here, they're getting into that relationship with you, right? So then after that, how detailed and organized is your closing process? The reason why we pull that in is because once you've gone through this 6 steps, the closing is the branch between this conversion process from lead to prospect to client and birthing them into what is the most harrowing section of buying a house, which is closing, especially if you're dealing with a bank, appraisers, home inspectors, attorneys, or title companies. There's so much that's about to be, set into motion here that you want to really remember. Establishing a transparent checklisted process for closing, okay, is very important because they're most likely to repeat and refer if you take them all the way into this process correctly. We'll get into the closing process, next week. But the idea is you see how I begin to connect you to what's next. Everything is like a bridge step to a bridge step. We don't want gaps in the process of this assembly line. And the assembly line, again, to repeat, let's go back up to the top of the assembly line. You are trying to look at this business like a Tesla manufacturing plant, where the contact information is the raw material that travels the entire process and ends up with the disposition of past client. And you want the tagline to be happy past client, likely to repeat and refer. So we go out in the beginning of this course, we tell you, listen, here's who you have to see yourself as to be a profitable agent, a business person. Next week, then you have to write a goal, because a business person sets a high-end goal at the commission level. And I say high-end, I mean, it's a North Star. Then how are you going to get that business, the unique selling proposition, and on it goes until now you're prepared to roll that contact through all the way to the end so that they end up in that happy position, right? So again, pro tip, start your buying process by educating your buyer rather than trying to take the business. That's the key takeaway in this. The everyone's, even though some of them are really nice people, they're coming across as takers because they're always kind of on the buyer. What I want you to do is give something to the buyer. I'm not saying don't be on it, but give. Don't try to take. Hey, listen, I could, take your information and start sending homes. No, not until it's appropriate. But right now, today, I can give you a copy of my unique selling proposition information package that gives you 3 things. 1, pictures and details of what the money's buying and the price range you're looking at. 2, a 1-page statistical market update. And 3, as a bonus, a copy of the 6-step plan I customize for my buyer clients. Wink, wink. Wouldn't you love to become one of those, right? So that's how you give to magnetize. And then you can slowly begin to take what you need for information. Why are you buying? How motivated are you, right? Right now. Where are you at in the process? Those are take questions that if you start off with them, you're an everyone. But if you lead into them by giving first, you are the only one, right? I'll promise you that. You'll see. Okay. He said that in one breath. Okay. So as you know how this call works here, now we can open it up to questions about this. We have a big group here tonight. I'm really appreciative that you came live here tonight. I'm appreciative to my partner, Paul, out in Seattle for bringing people in. I'm appreciative to my partner and recruiter, Kathy. She and I do sales together too, by the way. So if you ever want to ask a question about the procurement of buyers and particularly sellers, when she's on here, that's a good person to ask. But I'm appreciative that they've invited a lot of you in here and gone through some hoops to get you the link. So again, as an appreciation of being here live, I will answer questions about anything in the entirety of the business. But if you have something about this one particular subject tonight, I'm happy to take that. Okay. So feel free to open up your mics. You're all muted and we can go from there. Or any comments from Paul, by the way, Paul, or any of my Paul. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Sure. Sure. Right. Yeah. Well, Lauren, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up just for you and me on our logistical interior stuff for Griffins. I am turning Lauren more and more loose. So if you don't mind reminding me tomorrow in a text thread with Lauren to set up two separate Google, probably I'll put them in docs and we'll just have all of the links from Zoom in there. And that way you can grant anybody with a copy of that link to that Google Doc will have it all. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Correct. Correct. Yep. But what we could say to you, all of you that are young and new to the business is if somebody had told us to do that, and we've worked thousands of hours in this business, and we could condense it down to just 4 hours worth of training, and you could listen to these recordings while you're going for a walk or you're driving home from your job. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, we understand it's a lot in the beginning, but what we're saying is, you see how I chunked it up tonight for 7 steps for selling last week, 6 steps for selling. This course is only 12 steps. We try to keep chunking concepts up because we want you to see bigger strategies. And then each, when you say there's 12 steps to running a business, that's a strategic comment. Each week, we start to drop down a little bit more into the tactical level to say, okay, here's what to do and a little bit of how, right? So just imagine that that's the bone structure that you're being taught within so that you don't wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't understand where I am. Sure, you do. It's a 12-step agent process, like how to run an agent, a profitable agent business. That's for me. These are the things I do. These are the things Paul does. And we just share them with you and say, listen, strategically, you have to do these things because tactically, we know what you're up against out there. Oh, you're going to give me leads. What would you do with the lead if we gave it to you? What would you do? What would you do? Would you even know how that relates to your business goals? What you're trying to achieve as an average or a median commission within the geography within which you want to do business? See what I'm saying? So there's so much advice out there that's just a tactical thing that does nothing for you. We talk about it, in one of these modules. Leads hide in plain sight. There are people in every neighborhood that have some context to sell. There's some that are expired listings. They already tried and failed. They need help. There are probates where somebody died, right? And they're probably going to sell the house. There are people there that just in the normal course of moving, they're going to move every 7 years or so. Those are all listing leads, and those are far better than buyer leads will ever be if you start there, because the best buyer leads then come from those, open houses you run on those. So it becomes a very logical thing to see there is no scarcity. But if you don't see how strategically it really works, you fall right down to a tactic and you think that's the way it works by just seeing one piece of a tactic, which might not even be the best strategy. So remember, this is a strategic discussion first. What module are we in? Where are we at in bringing that contact along that assembly line to make it your happy past client who's likely to refer you or repeat with you when they're ready, right? That's how you look at it. Then you say, well, how do I do this piece? How do I do that piece? That's how you do this, right? So Paul's absolutely right when he says the core and fundamental training in this program, and anytime anybody's with me, you have to know how to make a buyer package of information and a seller. And neither are rocket science. But if you do not know how to do those things, you cannot begin properly with any of them because there are all sorts of different buyers, all sorts of different sellers, but fundamentally at the core, they need core information that's relevant to them if their context is I want to buy, I want to sell, and I'm motivated to do so, right? It's just such it's a cornerstone. Yeah. Right. Or watch the recordings or watch the recordings, right? Yep. 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 Yeah, good. Good. Yeah, for sure. Good. Awesome. Any other comments here? Any questions from anybody? Oh, Allison. Allison's in here hot tonight. Hi, Alex. Good. Yeah, we got you. Nice chapeau. Hey, nice chapeau. Yeah, yeah. Like it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I'm gonna make a case for you. Okay. Which would you rather give away? Right? Which would you W yeah, which would you not that I don't use these all the time, people still grab them at my open houses, but what would you rather give away? All my information is on the back anyway, and if I wanna really personally brand it, I can put my picture, so I can not only just put my information like, I mean, if I hold it like this, you'll get the point, okay? Like, there's my contact information, that's all a business card is good for, but if I attach it to, an information product, then I get credit for the information product. Now, what she just said was important. You know, you'd love to be able to give it to people who have the context to buy. So what she's saying is, hey, listen, I carry a batch of these with me. If somebody all of a sudden starts talking to me about buying a property, I don't need to run to my car and grab a business card when I could grab one of these and give it to them. And now all of a sudden, contextually, I haven't seen them in a while. I give them a whole more professional look of who I am. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, yeah, correct, correct. Shoot. Well, yeah, well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Okay, so let's just take the context that you're giving me, which is if I run into somebody, right? Okay, so that's a yeah, right. That's a context. Yeah. Well, it's a context. And, based on your text to me today about the website, you know how I feel about the integration of all medium. So if I want to be completely ready, I want to be ready in the context of multimedia, right? And that's what I was talking to these twin sisters that are joining us. I said, listen, I just need a white, a headshot in the background, like we just did for two of Paul's agents today. By the way, Paul, those are done. So we instantly make you a website, because when you go out and you give your information, we want you to buy Jane Doe Realty.com, and then we want to point that back to your website. But that Jane Doe, Realty.com is on the bottom of your copies of these, right? So you follow. It's like we want you to see us and professionally in any context within which you'll vet us. Okay. But you're giving me the context of bumping into somebody. That's why I snarkily held up a business card versus that. If you are out just somewhere having a stack of those in the business card mentality, that magazine still should have a place for them to go back to, maybe somewhere where you're talking about the full package of information, which you understand we have, right? So the answer is, if you had even business cards and you had like buyers scan this, sellers scan that, and it said that at the bottom, that goes back to the full package. Hey, if you're thinking about buying or selling residential property now or in the near future, I'd like to really get you started in the right direction by giving you a package of information to include pictures and details of properties that sold around yours or what the money's buying for the buyer, right? A one-page statistical market update to show you the exact direction of current market pricing. And as a bonus, a copy of our plan. Fill in your information. So you could theoretically give that away, but have somewhere in there, if you want the whole package of information, go here and order one. Because it becomes more microeconomically relevant if it's including the market update and the pictures and details of properties that are specific to them, right? So that's what I would say. Now, of course, if we're telemarketing, we're offering all three components, right? But the upsell, the thinnest things that we could give away would be like one piece, a market update. Okay, it is the market update, draw you over. That's what I just fixed on my market updates. The bottom of my market updates now have a QR code for or a URL for sellers and buyers, and a QR code for sellers. They all go back to the page where I'm unboxing the information product. And I'm saying, do you want one of these? Fill in your information. Now, it's more likely that we have to be proactive and make the offer to get it to them than they are reactive. I think largely the ship has sailed for people opting in and asking for things, right? There was a day and age when the opt-in was just everybody did it. But now a lot of the information is just given away for free. So I think you have to be proactively chasing people that have context, more so than any other context of just randomly bumping into somebody. Yeah, that makes sense? Yeah. Shauna, did you want to add to that? Go ahead. Shoot. Yep. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I would say is, to make it easy on you, what I would say is, listen, here's the local branch of this. Here's the link to our website, which has all resume information on it for each individual. It also, more importantly, demonstrates professionalism just by what it is, right? And then give the links to the main one with me and Paul's, right? And just say, this is the proliferation of this philosophy that's been being built for a long time, and now we're starting to expand it. Yeah, that's the easy way out for you, because otherwise you're starting to try to game it, when the truth is, if he wants to vet us, the three websites are more than enough to vet us, right? Yeah, cool. Good question. All right, what else? I'll take any kind of question. We're not packed in here to something. Kath, did you want to say anything because you've invited some people in here? I know Jessica's in here, and anybody else that you were. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you do it every week too, so you know how it works. Nobody makes more offers for our unique selling proposition at our company than you. So cool. Okay, final call for questions because I like to keep it under an hour. Otherwise, I'll burn you out. So anything? Oop, go ahead. Yeah. 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 She's the head telemarketer. She's number one telemarketer. You're welcome. Anything else? Okay. Oh, oh, yeah. Come on. Yeah, that's a really good question. That's actually a really good question because this has come up multiple times for me. Look, you're not going to make any money with the majority of phone calls, texts, and email. I mean, emails and text, but they can be helpful at the right time. So it's an excellent question. You're never really going to be able to fully articulate an offer unless you talk to somebody. So the danger in telling people, sure, leave a message, sure, leave a text, is their brain, their animal brain tells them, oh, just leave it, right? instead of no, go back and try that person. When I originally wrote the system for telemarketing in the software that we use, I wrote it, call them today, call them tomorrow, call them the next day. So 3 business days in a row that you work, you were supposed to make phone calls to try to get that person on. Then I said, wait a week and try them again in case they were away. So over time, I got this question a lot. I said, okay, when is it reasonable to maybe shoot them a text? So I said, call today, call tomorrow, call the next day, maybe shoot a short text, but it's not some full articulation of why you're calling or who you are. It's a different style. It needs to be cryptic and short. Hey, I wanted to send you some information and I want to make sure I have the right address. Now you might get a text back, right? So, but you're not telling them the full context because you're allowing them to opt out without hearing the full articulation of the value. So it's a very, very slippery slope to start leaving, voicemails and sending text messages for that reason. Okay. Because in the long run, you're not going to make money without talking to people. Does that help? Welcome. So stick with it. To me, like I'd rather somebody just always phone call, no text, no emails. But I do understand that from time to time, if we're going through a batch of people, Kathy, do you want to weigh in on that? Well, like I mean, that's been my philosophy for a long time, but what are you finding, what's happening there? Yeah. And listen, you're listening to a professional telemarketer who has worked in the context of this system for multiple years, has been very successful, but puts in a lot of real phone calls and talking to people. So she's talking to you about how she has learned to blend it in, but primarily she's making a lot of phone calls. That's the most important thing. And Pamela, our other telemarketer who's up and coming, makes a lot of phone calls. So the money is in those original phone conversations. But as you see, with a pro, like I would never allow a telemarketer to tell me they're texting the majority of the time. They're emailing the majority of the time. Wouldn't happen. That's not the telemarketing job, right? That's anybody can do that. The telemarketer is adept at talking to people on the phone, understanding the value of a script, staying inside the words of the script, staying inside the boundaries of this. Kathy will tell you, she'll be the first one to tell you. Laura, my client care manager, and I will all tell you the same thing. The minute we find ourselves stepping out of the systematic approach that has been proven, we cost ourselves money. It's just like clockwork. We cost ourselves money. So try to build the discipline to understand that primarily at the front end of your business, you have got to be talking to people and meeting them face to face. Kathy will tell you, because she and Pamela book me, as I get listings through them or through myself, every single weekend, I cannot wait to do my open houses. Like I'm chomping at the bit, unless I'm going away with family or whatever. I do 90 minutes twice a weekend. I tried to do 5 last week, but I had to drop my wife off at the airport. She would have killed me if I didn't take her, right? Otherwise, I would have done 5 of them. 1 on Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday. Why? Those are all retail storefront opportunities that real buyers are coming through the door, real sellers without agents, but over the course of a year. If I just did 1 and I got skunked, open houses don't work. Nonsense, right? Or telemarketing, I can't get anybody to call me back. I can't get anybody on the phone. Nonsense. You just haven't done enough. And that's what Paul was trying to employ the rest of you that are in Seattle making these phone calls. You've got to commit to making enough and doing enough of anything for you to see those results, right? And be careful of your animal brain wants the easiest thing, not the most effective thing. I'm going to say that one more time. Your animal brain versus your thriving brain wants the easiest thing. It wants to do what it thinks is easy to get maybe one check, right? So that it can be validated and it can be fed. Then it wants to go to sleep. That's the problem with the two sides of your brain. So be careful that your brain is looking for the easiest answer, not the most effective one. The most effective one is talking to people, period, paragraph. Even she said, hey, it started off as a text, but then I said, when can I call you? You can't really fully articulate. And of course, when can Danny get in the house? That's a kinesthetic physical experience. So, there's you can use texts and emails and those types of things, voicemails, all of those things as tools, but never as the primary source of how you're going to do business. It's a phone conversation or face to face that eventually leads to appointments in the house or showing properties. That's how you make money, right? Good. All right, 801. Enough of us. Appreciate you hanging in there. Wonderful attendance, wonderful questions. Bravo. We will see you next week for week number 11 as we get down to the last couple of weeks before our break. So thanks so much for being here live. I appreciate you all, and I will see the rest of you masterminders tomorrow. Thanks, Kath and Paul, for weighing in here. And the lovely Allison with the chapeau. Thank you. Bye, gang. Bye.